I want to share with you why I outsource my photo editing, how it actually increases my profits in addition to freeing up more time, and how you can find an editor should you decide to proceed, and how to train your editor to do the work in a way that you want to do it. If you're new here, my name is Richard. I'm a full-time photographer in Australia. My wife and I, we own a boudoir photography studio. That studio produces us multiple six figures per annum, and I make these videos because I really enjoy talking about business and I like helping other photographers. So the first thing is, why would I decide to outsource my editing, especially now that you've got software like Avoto, which is AI editing, and with the advancements of Photoshop being so good now, it's not clever enough yet to do what we want, especially with something like boudoir, where faces might be in shadow, or they might be upside down or at weird angles and things like that. It doesn't quite know what to do with that stuff yet. And even though it does get you a lot of the way there, you still do need to take the images into Photoshop and things like that to finish them off. So I'm finding even with that, human decision making is required a lot of the time. But say you sell a package of 20 photos in an album, or 20 photos in a folder or a box, or whatever the scenario is, and let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that each photo takes 10 minutes each. Now you might say to me, look, I'm a lot quicker than that, and that's fine, I believe you. Some people might take longer, but for me, I find that it doesn't really matter what the photo is. I seem to take at least 10 minutes. Because once I get into Photoshop and I start fiddling around, and I also find that when I get onto computers doing activities like this, I don't know about you guys, but I get really, really easily distracted. Like, I'll get a notification from Facebook or something like that. I'll go and check that out. Okay, so let's get into some numbers. So in my case, I pay $3.80 per photograph to edit right now. So what that means is, I send some in that are super easy to edit, and I send some in that are super hard to edit. I send in certain clients that are easy to edit, and some clients that are difficult to edit. So I've got an arrangement with our editor where it all kind of comes out in the wash. Okay, so I don't sort of discriminate. I don't like hold back the really easy ones and quickly do them myself, and I just send her the hard ones. I send her everything. Using the 20 photographs as an example, it means I'm paying $76 for the edit. Okay. Now, let's be generous and use 3 hours of editing time as the example. That works out to be roughly $25 an hour. Now, I don't know, depending on what country you're in or where you might be, but here in Australia, $25 an hour these days is pretty much a minimum wage for a retail worker or something like that. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I feel that my time is worth way more than minimum wage. I can be much better spent, as I think I mentioned earlier, marketing, talking to clients, just basically working on my business and not in it. I mean, the amount of things I can do in 3 hours is a lot more than the editing. And more importantly, I find that, because I don't really like editing myself personally, I find that if I spend 3 to 4 hours in front of the computer, it just seems to sap me of all my energy to do anything else. So I think that's just it. I think that editing is a black hole of time. So the question that you've got to ask yourself is that time that you're saving dollar-wise, is it worth it to you to pay it? I think that the vast majority of people will say yes. I can only speak for myself, obviously, but everyone else I've spoken to who have outsourced their editing can't believe that they didn't do it sooner. So let's talk about how it increases your profits. I did say that in the title. Let me run through that now. So let's say, for example, you sell a really nice album from wherever, and let's say to get it to you with tax and freight and everything like that, say it costs you $500. I'm using really round numbers here just for the sake of easy arithmetic. So let's say you use one of the industry standard methods of marking up your goods, and let's say you mark that up 5 times. Okay, so that would obviously be $2,500, and that's great. Now, but let's look at what happens if we add the cost of editing on to the album. So let's say we add that editing on, and we decide that then makes the cost of the album $576, okay? That means that if you now, using that 5 times markup factor at 576, so it's 5 times 576, which now equals $2,880 that you're selling the album for. Let's round it up to $2,900, because that's a weird number to have as a product. So essentially, you've picked up an extra $304. Okay, so that's basically $2,880 minus the $2,500, which gives you the difference, minus the $76, which gives you the balance of $304. So you're picking up an extra $304 on the album just by simply outsourcing it. And also all the time that you've saved by not having to do it, and so on. Now you might say to me, look, that's fine, but I can just mark my albums up, and that's true. But I think until you actually have to fork out extra money, right, to get something done, a lot of people won't do that. They won't. People are funny about putting their prices up. But if that's part of your cost of goods and part of your cost of doing business, then you will actually do it. That's what I find. So by having that embedded into your cost of goods, it will encourage you to put those prices up, and as a result, pick up a bit of money in the middle. So I think that's a really good thing, and I've mentioned this before, but all the time that you save, I promise you, it just saves your sanity doing this. Okay, so you say to me, that's great, I want to do it, I want to find an editor, but I don't know how to do it. All right, so I would probably start with people you know, right? People who can make recommendations. So say you've got friends who are photographers who use editors, obviously you can ask them who they use. That's the old-fashioned way, I mean, that's great. Second thing I would do is go into photography groups in Facebook. So whether they're editing groups, whether they be professional photography, I've always noticed is in the groups, is that when everyone asks for an editor, all these people pop up and say, oh, I'd love to help, because they're professional editors and they hang around those photography groups offering to help, okay? So you could probably find some there. The other place is Fiverr. And then also, don't discount local people. So for example, of all people, my builder, the person who built this studio that I'm in now, his girlfriend or his girlfriend's daughter or someone was an editor, and they would have been very happy to edit the photographs at the price that I'm paying my editor. But I said no to that because I had one that was working really well. I obviously didn't want to change. Okay. And then the next step is, how do you train them, or how do you get them to edit the way that you want to do? Now, before I get into all this, I classify this as really high value time work, meaning the amount of time you put into this now will save you a ton of time going forward. It's like doing your website. You kind of do it once and then you leave it alone for 6 months to a year, and it's really, really high value work that you're doing. But the way that I would train a new editor is, the first thing I would do is provide them a heap of before and after photos of how you like photos to look. So for example, provide them a before and after example of what you classify as a light skin edit, a before and after of what you would classify as a heavy skin edit, a before and after of what you classify light liquefying, before and after what you classify as heavy liquefying, all those things. Examples of color correction, what you define as color correction, all those types of things, provide before and afters of that. I would also provide them with all the actions and presets that you use and color profiles that you use, okay? And that way then they can then achieve those same results that you get now. And I would also provide them with videos on how to do it, okay? So, because this is where this all falls apart, is especially with language barriers, where in my case, dealing with people who are using English as a second language, okay? So you need to provide them with all the information you can so that they can be successful. And then what I would do as well is I would take all those before and afters, all the videos and everything like that. I would create a hidden page on your website. I would upload all that information to your web page, so that when you send in your edits, you can say to them, like, this particular lady wants a light edit, she wants double chins removed, and please see the attached link for those examples, right? And so that way then, so by having all that information done, it means, one, you can provide it to your editor going forward so they understand what you mean, okay? Two, if you are auditioning editors, you can provide them with all that information so that you can see whether they do work that you're happy with. And three, if you need to change editors, so say for example you've been with an editor and they suddenly triple their prices and they're trying to hold you to ransom or something like that, then it means you can easily change to another editor because you've got all that information for them. So like I said at the beginning of this, it's really high value work that you're doing. It's a pain in the ass to get to do it at the beginning, but it's really high value work going forward into the future. If you got something out of this, I'd love you to subscribe to this channel. My goal is to produce one of these videos once a week. I've been a little bit out of sorts lately because of Christmas, and so I've been a bit behind. But yeah, I hope that going into 2025 that you have an awesome year. I hope it's super profitable, and I think that 2025 is going to be amazing. Again, thank you for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.